Welcome to Muslim Apologetics Australia. Let's debunk this argument once and for all. The argument goes like this. If Muslims hate the West so much, why do they migrate here? Here's the response. There is an irony in the way people say, if you don't like Western values, go back to your own country. Let's take that same logic and apply it in the opposite direction for a moment. If you truly despise the Middle East, if you think Arabs and Muslims are barbaric, backwards, uncivilized, desert people, then why do Western governments pour billions of taxpayer dollars into the region every year? Why do they relocate Jews and Zionists from Europe, America and Australia into the heart of the Middle East instead of simply building them a homeland in the West? If the region is so inferior, why are you putting settlers, money, weapons, military bases, and political support there? You tell Muslims to go back while your governments actively interfere, invest, settle, and militarize those same lands. The hypocrisy is staggering. And here is one more hypocrisy people never talk about. When a Muslim criticizes Western policies or Western moral issues, they are immediately told, if you don't like it, go back to your country. But here is the thing. A white Westerner can criticize anything they want without ever being told to leave. They can complain about the government, immigration, policies, high taxes, the health system, the school system, LGBTIQ issues, housing prices, crime, social decline, and the entire culture. They can rant all day on Sky News, Facebook, newspapers, radio, and nobody tells them, go back to England. But the moment a Muslim points out a problem, suddenly the rules changes. The same criticism becomes unacceptable. The same freedom of speech disappears. This double standard exposes the truth. It's not about criticism. It's about who is allowed to speak. And let's also address the reality behind migration. The West acts as if people from Muslim countries woke up one day and said, let's move to Europe. That is not what happened. Most refugees didn't want to leave their homes at all. But when Western governments spend decades bombing, invading, destabilizing, toppling governments, and collapsing economies across the Muslim world, people have no choice but to flee. It is like burning someone's house down and then complaining when they knock on your door. People move wherever stability, trade, and economic opportunity exists because their own nations were destroyed by foreign interference. Now you lecture migrants about assimilation, you whinge that they won't abandon their traditions, and yet you call them ungrateful. Meanwhile, your government sends money, weapons, settlers, and political backing into the same lands you pretend to hate. The double standards is obvious. And here's another level of hypocrisy. The same people who mock Arabs, Asians, or immigrants with, if you don't like it, stay in your own country, are the very people who, the moment they retire, run straight to Thailand and the Philippines, Vietnam, Bali, Qatar, the Gulf. If the West is truly superior, why do Westerners want to retire? As soon as they retire, they leave as soon as they can to these countries. Why aren't they enjoying their supposedly superior societies? Because life in the West has become too expensive, too lonely, too individualistic, too stressful, and too broken for its own people to enjoy. Meanwhile, the countries they mocked for decades provide everything they lost: affordable living, community, family values, safety, and respect for the elderly. Westerners' retirees are not moving to Southeast Asian and the Middle East out of charity. They are moving because these societies offer exactly what the West abandoned. And let's not forget the biggest hypocrisy in Australian history. When Europeans first arrived, they called Indigenous Australians barbarians, savages, mud hut dwellers, and even cannibals. They dehumanized Indigenous people to justify taking their lands. Yet those same Europeans willingly travelled across the world to live among the very people they demeaned and said they're barbaric. If Indigenous people were truly barbarians, why did colonizers come here at all? Why build your future on a land inhabited by people you claim to be inferior? The answer is simple. They came for land, wealth, opportunity, and a future. In the same way, Muslims today may disagree with certain Western morals and cultural laws, but they come to build a future, contribute, and live in stability. The same logic applies. Migrants seek opportunity, not cultural perfection. And let's talk about migration going in the other direction. If Muslims and Islam societies are so terrible, why do millions of Hindus, Indians, Filipinos, Nepalese, Sri Lankans, and Western expats flock to Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Bahrain for work? Why are so many South Asians building the Gulf rather than fleeing from it? If Islam was so oppressive, why are they rushing into Muslim countries instead away from them? It is simple. People follow economic opportunity, not ideological narratives. Migration is driven by stability, trade, jobs, and prosperity, not always cultural stuff or cultural propaganda. Muslims move to the West for economic reasons. Indians and Asians move to Gulf for economic reasons. Westerners retire in Asian and Gulf for economic and social reasons. It has nothing to do with liking or disliking culture. It is about where people can survive, thrive, and build a future. Meanwhile, Western societies are collapsing morally and culturally in ways that matter to real families. Hypersexualization is everywhere. Transgender ideology is being pushed onto children. Schools are teaching explicit content under the guise of education. Liberal feminism has turned relationships into battlegrounds. LGBTIQ ideology is being force-fed in classrooms and workplaces. Family structures are breaking down. Dating culture is a disaster. Men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s are flying to Southeast Asian countries to find wives because they cannot cope with Western dating culture anymore. Women sell explicit content on OnlyFans to men old enough to be their fathers. $5 feet pics, by the way. People prefer pets over children. Antidepressants use is at a record high. Some Western women openly say they would rather be alone with a wild bear than a man. They'd rather trust a wild bear than a man. This is the culture being advertised as superior. You laugh at 7th century Arabia while your own people cannot handle the 21st century. Half your society is desperately searching for the conservative values you ridicule Muslims for keeping. So before you ask, why do Muslims come to the West? Ask yourself a few questions. Why do Western retirees flee the West the moment they can? Why do Western governments keep interfering in the Middle East if they supposedly hate it? Why do millions of Asians and Indians migrate to Muslim countries for work? Why do Europeans come to Australia while calling indigenous people barbarians? Why do people go where the economies are strong instead of where the cultures are supposedly superior? Why do people flee when the West destroys their countries? The truth is simple. Migration is driven by economic reality, not exactly cultural preferences. And the same people who mock migrants rely on the very countries and cultures they insult when it benefits them. The hypocrisy speaks for itself. And before I end, of course, some will argue that it is not just about economics. They'll say people move for cultural reasons, claiming that Muslim countries deny certain freedoms or rights, particularly for women. That argument can be countered too. Many Westerners themselves choose to leave the West and retire in countries that are more conservative, more structured, and more family-oriented. They are escaping what they perceive as the chaos, moral decline, and hyper-individualism of Western society. Just as Muslims move for stability and opportunity, some Westerners move for structure, order, and society that better aligns with their values. Migration in every direction is about seeking a better life economically, socially, and culturally, not about blind love or hate for a particular culture. I can almost guarantee that if you think that the West is bad now morally, it will get even worse. Eventually, we are likely to see a larger shift where Westerners increasingly migrate to Muslim countries seeking stability, security, and cultural order. They are already investing, retiring, and feeling safer in places like Qatar and the Gulf. So if anyone wants to argue that people move to the West for cultural reasons, maybe the reverse is coming. Westerners flocking to Muslim nations for the very cultural stability they mock today. Migration in every direction is about seeking a better life economically, socially, and culturally, not blind love or hate for a particular culture. And that says it all. Thank you. Please subscribe, share this video, and whenever you hear these Islamophobes say, "Why do you come here if you hate it so much?" share this video. Thank you.